Hello everyone, and welcome to another Shadowlands video guide. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of stuff with the week 1 of Shadowlands and answering some questions that I've gotten on stream. So, if it's not blatantly obvious, my covenant that I chose was the Necrolords. Now this gives us Primordial Wave, and in today's video, we're going to be going over one of the questions is, what is your opener? How do you do your damage, and how do you weave in your Primordial Wave in combat? We'll answer that question. So depending on your talents that you have selected, this is going to differ. Also, as you guys can see, I am running Echoing Shock and Stormkeeper together, but I don't use them one after the other because the synergy between the two has been lost recently. So we no longer use that. Things could change though. I'll put a pinned comment in the comments down below if things do change for our opener, and I'll describe what it is then. But obviously the opener changes based off of what talents that you're running. If you are running Elemental Blast, you would pre-cast Elemental Blast before you used your Primordial Wave or Flame Shock. If you're using Echoing Shock, you want to be copying in single target your Lava Burst casts, and in AoE your Earthquake casts. If you're running Aftershock, then you don't have to fucking worry about it. You just get all these awesome Maelstrom resets and just don't worry about it. If you're running Ice Fury, you really have to pay attention to your stacks, and the cast sequence is a little bit different. So why don't we talk about the talents that I'm running right now. So your opener is going to look like this. Fire Elemental, you precast Stormkeeper, okay, and then you go directly into a Primordial Wave cast. You can Lust too if you're going to be lusting on the pull. And then you want to, after that Primordial Wave cast, you want to use Echoing Shock. Because after that Echoing Shock, we're going to be copying a Lava Burst. You're going to get 3 Lava Burst hits out of that first cast. Your Master of the Elements is then going to buff your character, and then you're going to use your first stack of Stormkeeper. You're going to use your second cast of Lava Burst here, and then you'll have enough Maelstrom to actually cast an Earthshock at this time. You can cast that Earthshock. All right, and then if you're spec'd into Ice Fury, you then cast Ice Fury. If you get a Lava Surge proc before that Ice Fury cast happens, though, you want to cast that Lava Surge proc after the Earth Shock has already happened, and then use your second stack of Stormkeeper. Why don't we go over what that looks like? So, I'm a precast Stormkeeper here, Fire Elemental, Lust, Primordial Wave, Echoing Shock, Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt, Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt. I didn't get enough Maelstrom there. Okay. Now I'm using stacks of Ice Fury. Alright. See how that looks? Depending on your Overload procs from your first initial cast of Lava Burst, because you could get up to 3 potential Overloads, because you're casting one, your Primordial Wave is casting another, and then your Echoing Shock is also casting another. So you could get up to 3 overloads on that. So that's going to depend on where you end up after that first Stormkeeper cast, what your Maelstrom value is going to look like. You saw there that I did not have enough Maelstrom to cast Earthshock, so then I just went into my second Lava Burst cast, and then second Stormkeeper Lightning Bolt after that. I also was not able to empower my Earthshock with a Master of the Elements. This can happen from time to time, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Obviously, it would be better if we could empower that, but we just didn't get a Lava Surge proc out of it. So, I was still able to also cast my Ice Fury and get all 4 charges off without any problem there. Your opener is going to look a little different depending on the procs that you get, and it is up to you to, on the fly, make changes. That's going to differentiate you from the average Shaman. Is your opener is never faltered, because you can make decisions and changes in your opener based off of what's happening and how much Maelstrom you're generating and what proxy you're getting, whether Lava Surge or Overloads, right? So when it comes to a multi-target situation, if you are in a dungeon, okay, but you are running Primordial Wave, there's going to be a different way that you want to do your opener. Now, obviously I'm not able to cast a lot of chain lightnings because there's not a whole lot of target dummies here next to each other, so I can't really get a full 4 or 5 target stack target dummy situation. But I should have no problem explaining exactly what you need to do here for a multi-target fight using, or an AoE style fight using Primordial Wave. It's going to be a lot more lava burst than you're used to, so why don't we look at what that looks like. You're going to be using Fire Elemental, obviously, and you're going to start off with a Flame Shock. If you have multiple targets, you can then just start casting Chain Lightning, building up Maelstrom, okay? Buying time for that second Flame Shock to come off cooldown, alright? Now, what's going to happen sometimes if you're running the Primordial Wave Covenant Conduit Tumbling Waves is that you're going to get resets, okay? And this is another one of those instances where you're doing reactive play, alright? So when you get these resets, you got to immediately think in your mind like, okay, I got a reset, now I can spread more Flame Shocks and get more Lava Bursts out hitting the target. It quickly becomes a little bit overwhelming with how much Maelstrom you can generate through sheer Lava Burst casts out of Tumbling Waves and Tumbling Wave procs and Primordial Wave casts. So keep an eye on your Maelstrom and don't waste a whole lot of it if you can try that. So what I'm going to start out here is obviously Flame Shocking, buying time for that Flame Shock to come off cooldown again. And then when I have the second Flame Shock out, I'm going to then Primordial Wave a third target and get out a Lava Burst. This is really good in 3 to 4 target situations. Over the course of like a 5 or more target situation, you still want to use your Fire Elemental, okay, and slowly build up those Flame Shocks. Don't waste casts of Flame Shocks, but the majority of the time in those situations, you're going to be casting Chain Lightning and Earthquake rather than Lava Bursts. Don't miss opportunities, though, to get those Primordial Wave casts out as long as targets are living long enough for you to have enough Flame Shocks out. Hopefully you guys can visualize. Your Fire Elemental is more of a spread cleave cooldown now with your Flame Shocks duration. And if you're playing Primordial Wave and using the Necrolord Covenant in Mythic Plus, it's a lot of reactive plays with the Covenant ability, the Conduit, Tumbling Waves. I forgot its name for a second there. Okay, so let me reiterate again. In a multi-target situation in Mythic Plus, you want to start out the fight with having your Fire Elemental out if it's off cooldown, okay? Flame Shock your target, start casting Chain Lightnings if it's 4 or more targets, of course. Spread those Flame Shocks, get 2 Flame Shocks out before you get your Primordial Wave on the third target, and then once that happens, you want to punch your Lava Burst. Hopefully you had a proc of Lava Surge at this point, so you're not hard casting that Lava Burst. In a good situation, that would be the best case scenario. And then in your downtime, you are casting Chain Lightnings and Earthquakes to build and spend Maelstrom. Lava Burst is hitting quite hard right now. It is our top damaging ability. And over the course of an entire dungeon, if you look at your overall damage, you will see Lava Burst should be the top damage for the entire dungeon. So if you are running Necrolords, obviously that's going to be even further. Another question is that I get, why did I choose Necrolords as far as the Covenant to go through for the first week, and what benefit does it give me over the other Covenants week 1? Week 1 doesn't really matter what Covenant you choose, honestly. You could go with Venthyr, you could go with Nightfey, Kyrian, okay, whatever suits your MMORPG feelers. I chose Necrolord because it is the best for raiding, and it is very, very strong for PvP as well. You can do a very high amount of damage in a very short amount of time. And what I'm going to be doing for the first season is gearing up through raiding and PvP so that I can transition into a stronger Mythic Plus season later on. And if I'm going to change my Covenant later on, I will already have chosen the path of least resistance for the first two styles of, or first two gearing instances, both raiding and PvP, where I can perform to the best of my ability, because Necrolord right now statistically is giving you the biggest bang for your buck in those two scenarios. So I would prepare my character for this season later on for Mythic Plus so that I can push with relatively good gear. In PvP, there are some pieces that I want off the PvP vendor to bring into Mythic Plus, so that's another reason why I went Necrolords, so that I can get those pieces a lot easier by running the preferred covenant for PvP. Now, when it comes to your talents, in both Raiding and Mythic Plus, I would look at simulations and Warcraft logs once that information becomes available. Storm, Earth, and Lava, which is a Shaman website, is saying that Echoing Shock is one of our better talents to bring into raiding, but Elemental Blast also offers quite a substantial amount of both Maelstrom generation and passive damage increase through the stats that you get from it. Echoing Shock is giving us a lot more Lava Surge casts for free, obviously, since its interaction with the Stormkeeper does not happen anymore. So if you are going to run it in raid, you're going to be using it mostly on Lava Burst casts to get those extra procs out. Ice Fury is definitely one of the strongest talents on that row, and it's going to be a quite significant amount of your damage just through Frost Shocks when you're able to do it, along with adding a lot of Maelstrom generation. You're probably still going to be running Master of the Elements. Storm Elemental build in raid is dead for a little while, and you can obviously switch between either Ascendance or Stormkeeper depending on what the fight needs you to do it. Do you need a lot of burst damage to burn phase, or do you need sustained damage? Obviously, Earth and Rage and Static Discharge are dead talents at the moment because Lava Burst is doing so much damage, so Echo of the Elements is going to be our go-to. When it comes to PvP, there is a very similar opener that you want to do to burst your target down. Okay, it's pretty much the same opener that you did in PvE as far as your burst damage goes. So you can precast Stormkeeper, Fire Elemental, Primordial Wave, Echoing Shock, Lava Burst, and then Stormkeeper. You can Earth Shock there if you had enough Maelstrom. I did a crap ton of damage in quick succession in some battlegrounds that I did, because I have 8,305 honor out of 1,500. I have been doing some battlegrounds because I bought some PvP gear. I have killed many players with this combo very, very quickly, and it's a feels good combo. If you have your cooldowns up, you can two-shot somebody with this combo. It's quite substantial. Obviously, you get the 3 casts of Lava Burst, one from the hard cast, one from the Primordial Wave proc, and the other from the Echoing Shock. Those 3 Lava Burst casts will generally put the player at half health or below that, depending on if they had defensives up or shields. And then you can finish them off with your Stormkeeper casts for quite a lot of damage and Earth Shocks. So have fun with this build. If you guys picked a different covenant, I'm sorry. This video is not necessarily for that, but I can answer a little bit of questions for those kind of covenants. If you went with the Night Fae, I'll give you some tips. Your Fae Transfusion can be buffed by Master of the Elements, though if you get locked out of the channel, you will be nature locked and cannot heal yourself, so be careful for that as well. Your Fae Transfusion and Soul Shape for Night Fae, I mean, there's a lot of really good things with Night Fae. There's a lot of simulated damage that's coming from Night Fae right now that is looking very, very good. If you went with the Venthyr, your Chain Harvest can no longer be copied by Echoing Shock. It was for a little while during the launch of Shadowlands, but that was only during leveling, and it has since been patched so that Echoing Shock does not work with Chain Harvest any longer. If you are running the Kyrian, obviously the totem is a little annoying to play around with. The Stormkeeper cast itself, when you're charging it up, no longer counts as a healing spell when you have your totem out, so you're not going to be wasting a healing charge on just casting Stormkeeper any longer, which is great. But also there are some Covenant Soulbind changes that has happened on Kyrian that makes it just slightly weaker than it was, but that's okay. It's still relatively strong Soulbinds that you can bring into both PvE and PvP combat. Check out bloodmallet.com to go over simulations on your Soulbinds, as well as the conduits, both Covenant conduits and the potency conduits that are already available to us. Call of Flame is looking like a really strong conduit right now, so you probably want to pick that up as quickly as you can at its highest item level going into the raid tier. So, like I said before, I'm going to be leaving in the comment section down below a pinned comment on the changes that could happen through Stormkeeper or Echoing Shock or our opener. If you guys want to check that out at a later date, things do happen. I will update them. Check out my twitch.tv/Barokoshama Twitch page where I stream almost every day. You guys can come here live and ask me questions or join my Discord. The links to those will be down below. Check out my Twitter and Instagram as well, social medias, and I will see you guys next time. Keep calm and Maelstrom on. Bye-bye. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like with these talents. All right, precast Stormkeeper, I'll fire Ellie. Oh, fuck!